Welcome to Cadre's companion video to the Family Guide for IDEA Early Intervention Due Process Complaints and Hearing Requests for Part C procedures. Parents have important legal rights if they disagree about whether the requirements of Part C of the IDEA are being followed. This video covers the right to file a due process complaint, also called a hearing request, to resolve a disagreement. Please note that this video is intended to explain due process complaints and hearings, but it is not intended to replace your procedural safeguards under IDEA or state law. A due process complaint is a written document used to ask for a hearing officer to resolve questions about the identification, evaluation, placement, or the provision of early intervention services, EIS. A due process complaint can address issues specific to an infant or toddler with a disability and their family. States have the option of adopting either IDEA Part B or IDEA Part C procedures for due process complaints and hearings, and knowing which procedures are operating in your state is important. This video describes the procedures for due process complaints for states that have adopted Part C procedures under Part C of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. There are important differences between IDEA Part B and IDEA Part C procedures that affect timelines, time limits, and other requirements. To find out the requirements your state follows, contact your state early intervention lead agency or Office of Special Education Programs OSEP-funded Parent Center. You may also visit the Cadre website, www.cadreworks.org/EI-Family Guides, for this information. If you live in a state that has adopted IDEA Part B procedures, see IDEA Early Intervention Due Process Complaints and Hearings Part B Procedures Family Guide and companion videos. A due process hearing is the most formal dispute resolution option under IDEA. It is conducted by a hearing officer who considers the information provided by each side, may ask questions of witnesses, and makes a decision about the dispute. The hearing officer is required to be impartial and knowledgeable about Part C of the IDEA. Under the Part C procedures, the due process complaint may only be filed by a parent. This starts a process that may lead to a formal hearing where a hearing officer decides the outcome. A few examples of when a parent might file a due process complaint include: you disagree with the results of your child's evaluation regarding his or her eligibility for Part C. You think that the Individualized Family Service Plan, or IFSP, developed by your child's IFSP team doesn't meet your child's needs and the needs of your family. You believe the EIS provider is not providing the services included in your child's IFSP. You disagree with the placement or setting in which your child's services are delivered. If your state's system charges for EIS services and you disagree with the fee charged for services or the decision about your ability to pay. When thinking about whether or not to file a due process complaint, there are a number of considerations to make. To begin with, due process is the most formal, least collaborative dispute resolution option. Other dispute resolution options include mediation and written state complaints. Depending upon the situation, each choice has advantages and disadvantages. Also, most due process complaints are resolved without a hearing, often through the use of mediation or another early dispute resolution option. In addition, in a due process hearing, a hearing officer who doesn't know your child and family makes the decision. In mediation, which you may request at any time, the decision is made by you, the EIS provider, lead agency staff, and others who know your child best. It's also important to know the following. The hearing officer is required to include both sides in any conversation about the due process complaint or hearing. Any due process hearing conducted under Part C must be carried out at a time and place that's reasonably convenient to you. Following a due process hearing, the hearing officer must mail a copy of the hearing decision to each side no later than 30 calendar days after the lead agency received the due process complaint. The hearing officer may, however, extend the timeline at your request or the request of the other side. The hearing officer's decision is legally binding. Either side can appeal the decision. From the time a parent files a due process complaint until it is resolved, your child must continue to receive the appropriate early intervention services in the setting identified in the IFSP that you consented to, unless you and the lead agency agree otherwise. If your complaint involves an application for initial services under Part C of IDEA, your child must continue to receive the services that are not in dispute. State lead agencies must have written procedures for filing a request for a due process hearing. Details on how to file a due process complaint are available from your state lead agency. Before filing, it's important to know that parents are not required to have an attorney to file a due process complaint. Because of the legal nature of due process proceedings, parents may, however, find it helpful to hire an attorney. If you end up going to a due process hearing, the other side will usually have an attorney, and you may want to have one as well. OSEP-funded parent centers may be able to help with attorney referrals. Your state lead agency may have a due process complaint form available, but you do not have to use it. If a form is available, looking at it and seeing what information is requested may help you organize your thoughts before writing a complaint. If no form is available, contact your service coordinator, the lead agency, or OSEP-funded Parent Information Center for assistance. Although Part C of the IDEA does not identify a time limit for filing, it is important to file in a timely manner to make sure your concerns about your child's services are addressed promptly. Include enough information in your due process complaint to identify your child, communicate your concern, and provide information about how you believe the problem could be resolved. For additional information on early intervention due process complaints, including what to expect after filing an early intervention due process complaint, a glossary of terms, and other early intervention dispute resolution options, visit www.cadreworks.org/EI-Family Guides. For state-specific information or individual assistance, contact your state lead agency or OSEP-funded parent center. The Center for Parent Information and Resources can also assist. They provide information on a variety of early intervention and special education topics and a current list of all the parent centers in the nation on their website, parentcenterhub.org. For a current list of Part C state coordinators, visit the Early Childhood Technical Assistance Center ECTA website, ecta-contact/PTC-COORD.ASP. To review the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, visit sites.ed.gov/IDEA. This concludes the companion video to the IDEA Early Intervention Due Process Complaints and Hearing Requests Part C Procedures Family Guide. We encourage you to also view the What to Expect After Filing an Early Intervention Due Process Complaint Part C Procedures video, and check out the many family resources located on Cadre's website, www.cadreworks.org/4-families.